Jed York talking about how Kyle knew week 1 of training camp last year that Brock might have been the best quarterback on the team. That kind of blew my mind. I mean, yeah. Because I'll say, like, I was someone who was hanging on to the Trey Lance dream because I wanted it to work, not because I was delusional or whatever. It was just because high ceiling. Josh Allen is on the cover of Madden or whatever. Like we're
round picks.
Yeah, we are projecting everything we want him to be in a state of hanging on to a state of optimism.
Right.
But then Jimmy comes in the season and plays the best ball of his life. And so it's fascinating to know that amidst all of this, that Kyle was kind of in the back saying, actually, we got Brock, and we actually think he might be the best guy. I'm not going to fuck with the depth chart. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to make a rash decision here. Right. But just so you ownership know, which, by the way, ballsy move, kind of makes me respect Kyle even more, because like Kyle really is about that life of like,
he is. He said it with his whole chest after
100%
after training camp. Like, hey Jed, sorry, we just traded the future of our franchise to go get this guy, but I think Mr. Irrelevant's better than him.
Totally. So what was your perspective when you heard that?
Oh, I loved it. I loved everything about it. This is the type of stuff that like I love to hear as, a content creator, who covers the team. I love the tidbits, these things that go on behind the scenes that we know that there are discussions, thought processes, and all these different things that occur to the decisions that we only see, and we get on our streams and we just kind of, well, we think this is why they came to this decision, or this is where we think they're going, to actually be able to understand and kind of hear the thought process behind it, and to understand how early they were in on Brock. And then, and again, the point too that Jed said, he's like, it's not like we changed our depth chart, right? Mm-hmm. Like that we had 2 catastrophic injuries. That's how he got his opportunity. And once he got the opportunity, he never gave it back. He never gave it back to a former number 3 overall pick who was arguably the highest trade compensation given up to move and get a player like him. And they're like, Mr. Irrelevant's better. And they made the tough decision to stand on that business and make the move. And again, but I love the insight. I love John Lynch talking about it today, saying that his jaw hit the floor when he heard Kyle, because it's like in other buildings, that could be career suicide, right?
Totally.
Like other owners, like when you make an investment, that's how they're looking at it. Like this is capital. This is an asset. This isn't a player. Like we don't care. Like they care, but you know what I'm saying. It's a number on a spreadsheet, right? So when they see that asset isn't being realized, or it's a miss, it triggers a different thought process. So the fact that Kyle again, and I think that situation speaks to the continuity within that front office that we don't get to see. And again, I think it's hard to be in an NFL front office. Like, again, I don't have any experience, but we've seen how much pressure has been placed on this group, with Jimmy to Trey to Jimmy to Brock. Like, it's been this bouncing ball at quarterback that started way back when with Brian Hoyer and CJ Beathard. And it's just been insane, right? And it's crazy that as we sit here right now, heading into the Super Bowl, I don't know about you, but it feels like we have our franchise quarterback. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, obviously the Super Bowl, here's what I will say, is that, first of all, the short answer is I have seen enough from his body of work, especially knowing that we get another effectively contract redshirt year next year.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is bananas. Like, we couldn't. My understanding is we couldn't even pay Brock Purdy if we tried. Is that correct? Like,
yeah, I don't think so. He's
contractually, like we have to wait another year. So, My short answer is yes until further notice, because we don't have to pay him now. And the reason why I didn't freeze up there, but what happened was the moment I feel like our fan base soured on Jimmy for good was when he missed the pass in the game that shall not be mentioned against the team that shall not be mentioned, that may look familiar next weekend. That was a moment that I feel like our fan base really turned on Jimmy. Now, keep in mind, there were leading circumstances that got us up to that point that I have not discovered with Brock. I say it on my show all the time. By the way, if you are just joining, I'm Sourdeath Sam, youtube.com/Sourdeath Sam. I say it on my show all the time. I feel safe in Brock Purdy's arms. When I see Brock Purdy get his feet ready, lock and load, and the camera hasn't panned yet, I don't know where it's going, I feel safe. I'm like, ooh, he found it. Like, oh, this is going to go somewhere good. And when Jimmy did that, my first thought was like, uh-oh. Like, what's he seeing? No. What's he not seeing?
Oh, gosh.
I just feel a lot more confident about the way Brock materializes his decisions, is the best way to put it. And so I, in short, feel really great about Brock, because the other thing I say often is that Brock was sort of conditioned and groomed into the Shanahan universe. It's all he knows in the NFL. And he had to know it so well in a way that a first-round pick might not have to, because if you're the last pick in the draft, you're hoping to stay alive. Every day is a struggle. Every day is a fight. I don't care what position it is. It could be quarterback. It could be any position. If you are the last pick of the draft, your future is not certain, and you better study, and you better show up, and your effort better be phenomenal. And so with the case of Brock Purdy, he's done everything we've asked him to do. And as far as his rookie slate of games, plus some change that we've seen since last year to this year, phenomenal body of work. Mm-hmm. Even the games he didn't play amazing in, guess what? He is a rookie and a half right now as far as his games are concerned. So, yeah, I feel really good about Brock. As far as franchise quarterback, luckily we don't have to make that decision until next year. but I'm stoked with him. I'm happy with him. He has put up incredible numbers this year. How could I statistically argue with what he has done? And the one thing I would say is, Kyle Shanahan's car is a very intricate sports car, and it takes a very important skill set to know how to operate that vehicle. And this vehicle, in the regular season, was humming. I think the postseason has felt a little clunkier because you could chalk it up to rust. Steve Young might. I mean, he brought it up as a concern before.
A couple guys
did. So you could chalk up the Green Bay game to rust. The Lions game, I don't think he's afraid of pressure. He performs quite well when there's pressure in his face. The thing I just want to make sure of is that he is capable of not being afraid of his Super Bowl moment, because I know that he's capable of dialing it in every other capacity. And quite frankly, I think any player, whether they're super experienced or not, is going to have jitters in the biggest game of their life. But I do believe that in this particular case, Brock might have a little bit more jitter action going on. So I'm hoping he can just kind of taper that off as soon as he can, so that this offense can be efficient. And luckily, he has the rushing title holder to be able to help him get into that rhythm.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I think of the Ravens game when I've talked about that one as like a mini Super Bowl preview. When you think of as much pressure as you could put on a regular season game, I think that Ravens game had Christmas, prime time, MVP versus MVP. The winner takes all. I knew Purdy knew that. He knew it. We all knew what that game meant. And he talked about it, right? He talked about getting a little bit too into that aspect of it, trying to make too big of plays, pressing. So I totally understand that thought process of we still have one game left, and we've seen this game, that being the Super Bowl, make or break other 49ers quarterbacks. I even think of Kaepernick. Like, I thought that Kaepernick was going to really be able to ascend after that Super Bowl loss to the Ravens. And it didn't really feel like that. I feel like he definitely had his moments where he was still proving he could be a good quarterback, but after time just felt like there was a regression. And then same thing with Jimmy. Jimmy, for the first half, was outplaying, Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl, and then had a couple miscues here or there down the stretch, and then had the opportunity to hit Sanders. And that's all we think about when we think of that Super Bowl. We think of that and the 3rd and 15. Those are the two big-time plays that when you think of that Super Bowl, those are the plays that stick out to you. And so I totally understand. You want to be able to get through this game and not have those types of moments attached to Brock Purdy, because that pressure of that moment and those individual moments can stick with you for your rest of your life, right? So I understand what you're saying. You want to see the Super Bowl. You want to see how he performs. You want to see how he manages, and you want to see how he comes out the other side.
Totally. I mean, because Brock is maybe one of the most, if not the most, micromanaged or micro-scrutinized quarterbacks in the NFL right now.